Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a new poll shows that older Arizonans not crazy about the Senate Republican health care bill. Also tonight, Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio's criminal contempt trial gets underway. And we'll talk about the impact of economic policy on economic growth. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The U.S. Supreme Court today allowed a limited version of President Trump's travel ban targeting 6 majority Muslim countries to go into effect. But the court said that the ban cannot be imposed against those who have, quote, credible claim of a bona fide relationship with a person or entity in the U.S. The ban impacts people from Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Yemen, Libya, and Iran. The High Court says it will take up the case when it meets for a new session starting in October. The Supreme Court today did not make a decision on a lawsuit regarding Arizona's attempt to deny driver's licenses to young immigrants who were shielded from deportation. Instead, the court asked the U.S. Solicitor General for more information about the lawsuit. A lower court ruling holds that Arizona must provide driver's licenses to young immigrants who are part of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program. The state is fighting that ruling. And as Republicans in the Senate prepare to vote on a bill to repeal and replace Obamacare, a protest and news conference was held in Phoenix today by those who say that the bill will hurt legislation.
Trump Care would make it harder to prevent unintended pregnancy, harder to have a healthy pregnancy, and harder to raise a family. Simply put, Trump Care is terrible for women and terrible for our country, and we think it must be stopped.
The health care bill drafted by both the House and the Senate cuts Medicaid funding so significantly that thousands of people with disabilities could lose some or all of their coverage. The way these bills propose to fund Medicaid will result in inadequate funding, which disproportionately affects people with disabilities who rely on this funding to live.
Currently on a medication that is $7,000 a month, $84,000 a year. Very, very fortunate to have insurance again, but what happens if I, for whatever reason, become unemployed? I've been laid off since I fell ill, and again, those costs are unthinkable. To have that $84,000 annual balance before I even pay any of my other bills is unimaginable.
You've heard the devastating impact it would have on the lives of real Arizonans if this thing were to pass. So we urge Senator McCain and Senator Flake, do the right thing, make your position clear that no is the correct vote on this mean Senate proposal.
Senate Republicans hope to vote on the bill this week. We here on Arizona Horizon will be covering the health care replacement issue all week. And we start with how seniors feel about the legislation. AARP Arizona is out with a new poll on the deep divide between Americans and Washington politicians over health care policies important to older Americans. Here with more is Dr. Len Kirshner, past president of AARP Arizona and the former director of Arizona's Medicaid program. Good to see you again. Thanks.
Good to see you.
Your thoughts, your individual thoughts on the plan. We just got the CBO report coming out here today. In general, what are you seeing?
I think it's a step in the wrong direction. Clearly, we have to deal with, on the healthcare issues, the accessibility for those who are uninsured. We moved that. The affordability, the cost fit, we're moving somewhat towards a value-based system. And the accountability, the value that we get out of our healthcare system. So the Affordable Care Act tried to do some of those things. Success in some areas, not success in other areas, but clearly what's going on in Washington now, I think, is a major step backwards, and we need to have that conversation going forward.
And the conversation, obviously, with AARP and its members regarding this particular survey. We have a graphic that'll kind of help us through all this. Let's start with folks 50 and older. Getting, I mean, you could be subjected I should say, to 5 times more than younger folks?
Right now, the current law says you can be charged 3 times more than a younger person. And that was negotiated back over the last 7 or 8 years. This law says, no, we're going to move that to 5 or 5.1 times what a younger person. Clearly, the polling showed,
yes.
We asked independents, Republicans, Democrats, overwhelmingly said, we hate it.
Yes, I mean, what, 90-some-odd% saying no?
Right across the board. 91% said no, and even the Republican side, 85% said no.
On the Republican side?
Absolutely. So it's across the board.
All right, back to the graphic here. Cutting funding for Medicaid that helps seniors live independently. What does that mean?
Well, when I was the director of Access, we started the ALTEX program, Arizona Long-Term Care System, to provide funding for home and community-based services, primarily some nursing home. That's mainly for those that are elderly and those that are disabled. We are Access is the major funding source. If you cut that Medicaid program, and we have a letter from Governor Ducey to Senator McCain and also a report by Tom Betlock talking about taking $7.2 billion out of the Arizona healthcare pot. $7.2 billion. Mm-hmm. Understand, the total general fund this year is about $9.7 billion. That's a hit that you can't get. And so those programs will be on the chopping block. You can only do a few things when you cut funding. You can cut services, you can cut reimbursement, and you can cut eligibility. That's it. And so it's not going to work very well.
And we're going to talk about the impact on the disabled tomorrow. Yeah. As far as cutting funding for Medicare and increasing premiums, cutting funding for Medicare and increasing premiums, again, AARP folks, not going for it.
Absolutely not. And this has been a proposal that Paul Ryan has put out in his Better Way last June. He laid out that he wants to move Medicare in a very different direction. We can go back to Newt Gingrich in 1995. The budget bill that year that President Clinton vetoed proposed the same thing. They also proposed the same thing on Medicaid. They proposed block grants to the states. So these are not new issues. They're recirculated issues, and they were rejected before, and they probably will be and should be rejected again.
Charging people with pre-existing conditions, charging them more. This has now flowered here on the Senate GOP plan. Again, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to look at this graphic. AARP people are not happy with these policies.
No, and, the population is aging. The baby boomers, you may be one, 1946 to 64. They're coming into the population. They turn 65, about 10,000 a day. We can look at those 1964 group. Donald Trump was born in that year. Bill Clinton was born in that year, and so was George W. Bush. So that aging population is going to need the services that we're providing, and they are not, and they have pre-existing conditions.
Right.
So that, once again, 82% said bad idea across the board. And all the graphics, this is the population that we polled in the last 3 weeks.
Okay, I'm looking at this thing, and again, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that there's a really the disparity here is significant. And yet, older folks, traditionally, and certainly in this last election, by and large, voted Republican and voted for Donald Trump, voted for repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act. How do you square this?
They voted for a lot of things, and it was a very difficult election. I'm not sure they voted to repeal their health care coverage or to move in that direction. We've seen some of those vignettes, the anecdotes, that we didn't really think that was going to happen. And so I think that the voting for president, especially in the 3 states that really flipped it, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, many of them going back now and interviewing them said, we didn't really think he was going to do that to our healthcare system.
But as far as seniors and older folks in Arizona, most of them did vote for Donald Trump. Okay. Certainly, does this suggest their minds are changing? They didn't care as much about health care as they did perhaps on other issues?
Healthcare is a really interesting one. When you looked back at the Clinton proposal, the next election, the midterm election, Gingrich came in and the Republicans won a majority. You looked at the Obama proposal, and that was passed in 2010. The next election, the Republicans. Next year in the midterm election, if the Republicans push this bill, they may be finding that history tends to repeat itself, this time not to their benefit.
All right, good information on as far as AARP is concerned and attitudes there on these policies. Good to see you again.
Well, one thing did happen today.
Yes.
CBO report came out just about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. And basically what we said, with the first proposal in the House, CBO said 24 million uninsured. The second one said 23 million uninsured. This one they say 22 million uninsured. Ted, we're heading in the right direction, but rather slowly.
All right. Thank you. Good to see you. Up next on Arizona Horizon, former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio goes on trial for contempt of court.
We want to hear from you. Submit your questions, comments, and concerns via email at arizonahorizon@asu.edu.
Former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio's contempt of court trial began today. Arpaio is accused of ignoring a federal court judge who told him to stop conducting traffic patrols targeting illegal immigrants by way of racial profiling. Joining us now is attorney Stephen Montoya of Montoya, Lucero, and Pastor. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us on
You're welcome.
this.
Thank you.
Starts today. Again, those are the charges. Contempt of court charges, for those who aren't quite clear as to what that means, define for us.
It's simple. Contempt of court is when you intentionally or willfully violate a court order. And contempt of court can be civil on one hand or criminal on the other. The only difference is in the criminal contempt of court, you have to show that the violation of the court order was both intentional and willful, and you have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
And we should mention that these patrols went on for nearly a year and a half after he was told to stop them.
170 people were stopped after the court ordered Sheriff Arpaio to stop the stops.
Okay, I want to get into this intent thing in a second here, but as far as Arpaio is concerned, he's facing up to 6 months in jail.
Yes.
First of all, if convicted, how likely is it that he goes to jail?
I don't think it's very likely because he has a clean record up to that time, and he is 85 years old. And on the witness stand, his age shows, and he's a very charming man when you deal with him face to face, and he has a twinkle in his eye. And oftentimes he's hard to get mad at when you meet him face to face and start confronting him with his behaviors.
All right. How likely do you think, and we're going to get to the wherefores and whatnots here in a second here, but how likely do you think that he will be convicted?
I tell you, law is a hard thing to predict. However, if any case could be easily predicted, it would be this one, and I'll tell you why. After an 8-day trial, Judge Murray Snow, no flaming liberal, found him guilty of civil contempt. And in his order finding Sheriff Arpaio guilty of civil contempt, Judge Snow specifically found that Arpaio intentionally violated the order and lied about it. And I think the same evidence is going to convince Judge Bolton to make the same finding.
Okay, what was the evidence today? Because again, now we're getting into the weeds here as far as intent. The defense is basically saying that he didn't intend to violate the order. He was just trying to enforce the law.
I don't find that very convincing. The intent is basically, as you know, everyone who lives in Maricopa County knows, in parts of the United States, Sheriff Arpaio talks a lot. And he bragged about violating the order. He bragged about not being intimidated by the federal court. He indicated that notwithstanding Judge Snow's order to the contrary, that he had the inherent right to enforce federal immigration law and was going to continue to do so. What happened today is his former lawyer testified against him. The reason that was possible is because Sheriff Arpaio initially said, I was just acting on advice of counsel, thereby waiving the attorney-client privilege, opening up the testimony of his former lawyer, Tim Casey, who testified, I told him to stop. He seemed to understand my directive, but nevertheless did not obey it.
So after Arpaio threw his attorney under the bus, did the attorney throw Arpaio under a moving vehicle?
Absolutely.
He did.
He did, and it convinced Judge Snow. I think it's going to have a similar result on Judge Bolton.
Do you think Arpaio's going to testify in this trial?
I think he should, and I'll tell you why. Because if he doesn't testify, the only evidence is going to be his testimony in the civil contempt trial, which really hurt him. And I think what really could help Sheriff Arpaio at this late juncture is to show his personality. Some people don't agree with us, but I think he's a sympathetic, oftentimes charming man. He's 85. Judge Bolton might have a heart, and I think if he shows some contrition, if he shows that he was confused and he really didn't mean to violate the order, Judge Bolton might be lenient on him.
And yet, all the prosecution has to do with him on the stand is just repeat or show the many things that Arpaio himself said.
That's true, and it sounds familiar. People in public office who are in litigation ought not to talk about the litigation on camera or otherwise on the record. That's what Sheriff Arpaio did, and it's already come back to bite him once in the civil contempt case. I think it's going to happen again in the criminal contempt case.
So what kind of timetable you got here? What happens next?
They're going to continue with the evidence. It's going to essentially be a duplicate of the evidence brought against him in the civil contempt case, and I think it's going to close down. I don't think it's going to be too long of a trial on the guilt phase. Then the sentencing phase will come, and that will be a different matter entirely. He could have a lot of members in the community come and testify that he's led a good life and really done a lot for law enforcement and really does not deserve to be punished harshly.
Would the other side be allowed to testify as well?
Yes, they will. I think it's going to be interesting as to what type of penalty is imposed. I don't think he's going to be incarcerated. I do think he will be found guilty. I think that he'll be fined and sentenced to do community service, which I think would be fair under the circumstances.
All right, we shall see. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The relationship between economic policy and economic development can be tricky at best, with economic results that can range from good to bad and all points in between. Here to talk more about policy and growth are economist Jim Rounds of the Rounds Consulting Group and Steve Voller, partner at Summit Group, a public affairs firm. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
When we talk about building the, first of all, let's define the term, building the economy. What does that mean?
Well, we have to be really careful because, we've talked about this dozens of times. What can government do to influence economic growth? Sometimes they should be involved, but sometimes the government needs to step back. And we made great improvements over the last few years after the last downturn, trying to get some good economic development policy, refining tax policy. But what I'm worried about is we've taken a little step back. We're getting away from that heavy-duty research to figure out what we should be doing, not just what can we be doing. And I'm a little bit concerned. I haven't felt like this since before the downturn.
When you say what we should be doing as opposed to what we can be doing, what are incentives, things like that? Are they going too much, too little, not what?
I think the risk is going too far. And so can we influence a condo tower to locate in one location versus another? Yes. Should we be doing that is the question. And in a lot of the projects that I've reviewed, very little research is happening. I think we just need to take a step back and address the fundamentals like Steve has addressed a number of times in the past.
Yeah, the idea that incentives have gone too far and they've become almost irresponsible. That hold water for you?
Yeah, it totally holds water. I mean, look at New York. The state of New York advertises in Arizona, do business in New York, move your headquarters to New York. We have low taxes. Anyone who's paid attention to New York knows they don't. Their tax rate is approaching 10%. But if you participate in that program they're talking about, they give away incentives and different rebates and exempt you from taxation. Well, that reminds me of when I was a kid. We used to get Sports Illustrated. You sign up for a year, you pay $1 for the first 3 months. Only applies to new subscribers. Right. Well, what about the people who are here or in New York paying the bills, paying the high tax rates?
Well, what about the people that are here? I mean, they see this. Is there an outcry? Are people starting to say, hey, wait a minute, time to pump the brakes at least a little?
You do see that at the legislature here and there. I mean, the film tax credit, it sunset. It lost money based on the state's own study. And every year they try to bring it back. We want to give money to people to come make movies here. And you know what? It should be done in the private sector, not by government.
You mentioned research, you mentioned facts, getting all this, everything in line before moving off on these particular policies. Was that done before and it's not being done now, or has it ever really been done?
Well, the improvement was more at the state level. So we started getting involved in this discussion because of Kirk Adams and Andy Tobin back after the last downturn, because we had to do something. We were doing economic development like it was the 1970s. And then Jan Brewer implemented some of the policies, and then Doug Ducey has really refined it and kicked it into overdrive. So the state, I feel like, is on solid footing. I'm seeing some failure among the local government entities because it's more about closing a deal rather than closing the right deal. And that's why you hear about the lawsuits that are happening with the Goldwater Institute. And I'll sometimes irritate some of my economic development friends, but the best thing that happened to economic development was the Goldwater Institute getting involved, because it challenges some of the things that are being done. And that gets back to what Steve is saying. At what point do you decide you have to get involved as government? And at what point is it a little bit too far? And that research can happen, it's just not happening.
And yet you will hear from leaders in municipalities that if we don't do these kinds of things, off they go somewhere else.
Off they go somewhere else, as if that is necessarily a bad thing. But you can't chase that last deal, because at what point does a policymaker or a city council person say no? You come to them, you ask for an incentive, you ask for a handout, you make the case, they say yes. What stops the next guy from saying, well, what about me? I'm doing the same thing. Why am I getting taxed at a higher rate so this guy can get a subsidy? And at what point do you say no?
We hear that sometimes from small businesses. They see all these corporate tax cuts and they see all the big boys getting all these breaks, and they're saying, what about me? Tax cuts in particular, they can't be in isolation, can they? I mean, you've got to factor in other things.
Yeah, there's a number of things that drive the economy. So some people say, what's the impact of the last series of tax cuts? That's like saying, well, how fast does your steering wheel go in your car? That's part of it. You need the steering wheel, but it's all the other stuff too. So you have to look at the tax policy, economic development, transportation infrastructure, communications infrastructure, cities just balancing their budget, the state balancing the budget. Everything matters. And I think we have to have a more holistic discussion, but it has to start with the fundamentals that Steve was bringing up. What is the proper role of government? And then you go from there. But right now it's, we want to close a deal. I think government entities should be patted on the back when they sometimes say no. I think a mayor should go to their staff and say, good job identifying that that wasn't the best deal for us. You looked out for our taxpayers, good job. That isn't what happens.
Can you afford to do that, though, when you never know when the economy is going to turn again, and you never know when all those people knocking on your front door, they're not going to be knocking anymore?
On tax cuts?
On everything, incentives, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, well, the whole system should be set to establish what revenue you want to generate for the services you're going to provide. And then once you get that established, then policymakers should have a very high threshold, a very high, the default should be no. You're going to have to make a real good case to me that I'm going to give you a benefit and not the guy across the street. But that's not what's done right now. Right now at the state capitol and in cities across the state, people are saying, yes, we want the new shiny new object because you look like a really cool thing.
It sounds like groupthink is in charge here, or at least of late. True?
Yeah. But don't get me wrong, I think we've advanced more than any other state. We're doing great in terms of attracting new businesses. We're really at the fine-tuning phase, and that's okay. It's okay to be critical and maybe take a step back and try to do a better job. You can't always just be positive and a cheerleader for how things are going. Sometimes you need a few people to step up, like an ATRA or Goldwater, and say, hold on, let's think about it. I love that.
Are there enough people saying, hold back? I'm not a cheerleader?
There's never enough people. The default should be no. There should be more folks down. I mean, anybody who's been to the Capitol or a City Hall meeting knows that most of the folks there are looking for something, and there's and the average taxpayer just doesn't have time to go down there or hire a lobbyist to say no.
And money's being wasted in the process.
Yep, you bet.
Good to have you both here.
Thank you.
It's a good
Thank
discussion.
you.
Tuesday on Arizona Horizon, we will continue our coverage of the Senate Republican health care plan and its impact on Arizona, and we'll hear from the coach and star player of ASU's championship women's golf team. That's Tuesday, 5:30 and 10, right here on Arizona Horizon. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thanks so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.